Shadows flickered like dying memories across the ruined halls of Outpost Crimson Siren. Emergency lights pulsed weakly, painting the corridors in a deep, flickering amber. Air hissed in short, furious bursts from broken pipes, each one a countdown to suffocation. Silence had replaced the hum of the station's life, the chatter of crew, the gentle whir of consoles, the comforting thump of stabilized gravity. Now, only static and groaning metal remained. Commander Naya Rovers pressed a trembling hand against the wound on her ribs. Molten plasma had kissed her side during the second blast. Her uniform, once a crisp slate gray, was now half-charred, half-slick with drying blood. Every step sent needles of pain dancing up her spine. But stopping wasn't an option. She leaned against a cracked support beam and looked out through a shattered viewport. Jagged edges of glass framed the stars beyond, and in the distance, the remains of Oxara 4 glowed faintly, a mining moon that had never asked for war, only to be left alone. The silence of space mocked her. "Station systems," she croaked, her voice hoarse and bitter from smoke. "Status report." A pause. Then the tinny, distorted reply of the outpost's barely functioning support AI. "Life support compromised. Deck 6 through 10 in atmospheric collapse. Current oxygen saturation, 24%. Estimated breathable duration, 19 minutes. Confirmed survivors, 16. Emergency systems at 12% capacity. Data integrity, partial. Caution, external threat remains active." Naya wiped soot from her brow with the back of her sleeve. She didn't need to ask what the external threat was. The Cylon Concord. They had come without warning. Black ships dropped out of sublight orbit. Just as the outpost was preparing to transmit damning intel to the Interfederation Council. Evidence of Cylon bioweapons used against civilian colonies. Sterilizations, genetic purges, crimes they always denied. Naya had overseen the outpost's defense protocols, knowing how little they would matter. And now, she was the last ranking officer still drawing breath. "Unlock emergency beacon protocol, Gamma 0, she said. "Warning," the AI replied. "Activating beacon will confirm location to Cylon forces within sensor range." "They already know where we are," Naya muttered. "Maybe someone else should too." A soft ping confirmed her command. Far above the outpost, a ripple of light burst into space, an encoded cry for help. But would anyone hear it in time? The groan. Naya shoved off the wall and staggered toward what was left of the command deck. Twisted metal curled in on itself like paper. Consoles sparked with erratic life. At her feet, a species she didn't recognize lay lifeless, its blue skin already dulling to gray. She took a breath, immediately regretted it, as smoke filled her lungs. "Computer," she said between coughs. "Location of nearest survivor. Survivor detected in hydroponics bay. 5 levels down. Minimal life support active." Naya cursed under her breath. Hydroponics bay was close to one of the pressure brake lines if the fire reached it. The whole level could decompress, but she couldn't let anyone else die alone. She limped toward the emergency ladder, bypassing a corridor blocked by debris. As she climbed down each rung, her side screamed in protest. Her hands, slick with blood, nearly slipped more than once. Memories tugged at her as she descended, brief flashes of her first arrival here 3 months ago. The mixed crew of humans and aliens working in sync. The quiet engineer who brought her tea. The alien security chief with too many limbs and too much heart. The quiet hours of shared meals and nervous jokes as they worked together to expose the Cylon Concord's lies. They were all gone now, or close to it. Reaching the hydroponics level, she forced the emergency door open manually. The humidity hit her first, thick and warm. Emergency grow lights flickered overhead, casting plant shadows like ghostly vines across the walls. In the far corner, curled beneath an overturned table, a small figure moved. "It's okay," Naya called, her voice softer now. "I'm Federation. I'm not here to hurt you." A moment passed, then 2 luminous eyes blinked open. It was a Nasari child, barely adolescent, with translucent skin and curling tendrils instead of hair. "They... left me," the child whispered. "I know," Naya said, crouching despite the agony in her ribs, "but I didn't." As gently as she could, She scooped the child into her arms. They weighed almost nothing. Their skin glowed faintly in contact. With hers a frightened bioluminescent response, as she stood, the outpost trembled again. Overhead, metal groaned like an ancient beast. The Cylon weren't done. Now its mind raced. There were 15 others scattered across the station. Somewhere maybe was the half-burned data core, the only proof of the Cylon's crimes. No. Backup. No time. No guarantee. Help was even coming. "We have to go," she whispered to the child. "And we have to make it count." Clutching the Nasari against her chest, she turned toward the corridor. Her vision swam, but her steps held. Steady, because no matter how hopeless it felt, they hadn't won yet. A deep hum echoed through the hull of the hospital ship Meridian Solace as it sliced through folds of folded space. Blue starlines shimmered around it, stretching infinitely across the cosmos. Within its curved walls, designed for peace and healing, tension rippled beneath the surface like a low-frequency quake. Dr. Prin Tallow stood motionless in the medbay's central station, 4 delicate hands folded behind his back. His translucent carapace reflected the sterile light above, his mandibles gently clicking in silent thought. Unlike many of his species known to the Federation, as Harnik Prin had chosen to serve off-world early in his career, curiosity, not duty, had drawn him to the stars. And today, that same curiosity was laced with dread. A crimson beacon pulsed in the ship's navigation core. A Federation distress signal, encoded with top-level encryption, had flared to life just 47 minutes. I go originating from the Exara quadrant. The message had included one chilling phrase embedded in its subcode: "Evidence breach imminent. Biorecord integrity uncertain. Priority level. Sovereign alert PRYN." Didn't need the captain to translate that. Someone, somewhere, was dying for the truth. Approach vector aligned, called the pilot, a gentle-voiced Thalari named Ensha. Station visual acquired. On the main screen, the outpost Crimson Siren rotated slowly against the distant curve of Oxara 4. It looked like something exhaled from a machine's last breath. Its once-proud solar sails shredded, outer decks blackened by fire, curling gases, and debris floated lazily around it like funeral veils in Ziraji. "Life signatures confirmed," said the tactical observer. 16 ... No, wait, 15. Fluctuation in Sector 6. Captain Durrell, a lithe Vion with skin that rippled like molten silver, turned her expressionless face to Prin. "Doctor, are your teams prepared?" Prin nodded once. "We are ready to deploy." He turned, antennae twitching, and marched toward the pre-departure bay. His team was already suiting up, a pair of broad-shouldered Velta twins in charge of physical evac, a gentle-eyed medtech from the Aquanal Seas, and a diagnostic specialist from the binary moon colonies. All species with one thing in common: the will to run toward danger when others fled. They moved quickly, the suits sealed with a faint hiss, and each member carried kits tailored for multi-species emergencies, fluid infusers, neural stabilizers, compression blankets, even portable gravity stabilizers. Prin carried an advanced scanner the size of a loaf of bread, covered in antennae, wires, and lights. It had never once failed him, but he'd never treated a human. "Environmental conditions?" he asked over coms as the shuttle docked. "Oxygen partial," came the reply. "Toxic particulates high. Radiation contained but rising. Recommend adaptive filters and sealed oxygen units." The airlock cycled open. Instant heat and acrid smoke greeted them. Even with his protective membrane, Prin flinched. The corridors of Crimson Siren were painted in flickering red light and silence. Pieces of bulkhead floated freely. Plant roots hung from ceiling vents, swaying gently in air currents that no longer obeyed order. Shadows moved like ghosts. "Scanning," said Yella, the binary specialist. "Cluster of signals ahead. Maintenance Bay 6. They moved. The corridor turned treacherous, with entire sections collapsed. They had to crawl over some parts, descend. Others, twice they passed fallen crew. One was a Sylvan, with crushed limbs. Another a green-skinned Lothri whose breathing mask had melted to their face. Still, the survivors waited. They could feel it, fragile threads of life, like stars behind. A cloud. When they reached Bay 6, they found it hastily barricaded. Metal lockers, broken tools, crates piled against the only standing door. Movement stirred behind it. PRYN stepped forward and lifted both hands in the universal gesture of peace. Federation Medical Corps. We received your beacon. The door creaked open slowly. Behind it stood a human dot, tall, ash-streaked, and bleeding from the side. Nye Rover's Prin scanned her instinctively. His mandibles clicked. Her vitals were erratic, blood pressure unstable, and the wound at her ribs had turned dark. Yet she stood like a mountain, refusing to yield. You're late, she said. We came as quickly as possible, Prin replied. Glancing past her. Inside, he counted 12 others, most lying still. 2 Nasari, 4 Cyllin defectors, a Velta with a missing arm. Even a child huddled beside a broken console. Triage first, Prin ordered. His team leaped into motion. Diagnostics flashed in their visors. Translation software relayed vitals in real time, pain suppressed, oxygen rebalanced, fractures stabilized. The Velta twins carried out the worst off, while Yella tended to a collapsed Tharn whose heartbeat thudded in 2 rhythms. All the while Naya assisted, pressing gauze, hauling stretchers, speaking in at least 4 different languages with comforting familiarity. When a dying Letheri cried out for their mate, Naya held their hand until they passed, and through it all, she didn't fall, until the last patient was loaded aboard the shuttle. Only then did she collapse against the wall, sliding down like liquid. Prin caught her before she hit the ground. You've been running on adrenaline alone, he said. Had to, she murmured. They needed me more. Now it's your turn. As his team loaded her onto a stretcher, Prin noticed something strange. A black, sticky substance ringed her wound. Not ash, not synthetic foam. Blood, but it was clotting. On its own. Even under this heat, this stress, and that kind of trauma? Scan her, he whispered, almost forgetting protocol. The results startled him. Her blood was doing things, tiny particles he'd call them. Platelets were clustering at wound. Sites. Broken vessels knitted themselves shut. And when his assistant tried to administer a standard anti-bleed serum, it had no effect. The blood ignored it, healed anyway. Is this ... normal? Asked her, as she faded in and out of consciousness. Double quotes, just human, she muttered, eyes fluttering. Prince stared at her in awe. Fascinating, he breathed. Her body is fighting to survive, even while she sleeps. As they lifted her into the shuttle and sealed the bay, he looked down at her closed eyes and made promise to himself. He would figure out how she was still alive, and if her blood could teach them something, save others the way it was saving her. Then the Meridian Solace would not just be a ship of healing, it would become the start of a revolution. The hush inside the medbay of Meridian Solace felt like standing in the eye of a storm. No sirens yet, no shudder of enemy fire, only the slow tick of monitors tracing fragile lives. Dr. Printallo moved from bed to bed, for hands steady, but mind racing. 15 survivors lay under curved stasis shields, each one a reminder that triage never ended. It only shifted shapes. He paused beside Commander Nea Rovers. Luminous gel cradled her in the regen pod, biolights crawling across. Her skin like wandering fireflies, reading said stable, yet her brow twitched in restless dreams. Prin knew what her body was doing, rewriting broken tissues, sealing tears, knitting fibers faster than any serum could. Still, human resilience had limits. A chime sounded over shipwide comms. Captain Durrell's calm voice filled the bay. All personnel, battle stations. 3 Cyllin warships on intercept course. Arrival. 42 minutes. PRYN's antennae stiffened. Earlier, the captain had insisted they jump to safety. Now, with so many wounded aboard, the engines were throttled. Too half-power, too much extra mass, Too many delicate metabolisms that could not survive a violent warp surge. Retreat was impossible, so the war would come to the hospital door. The regen pod hissed open. Naya swung her legs over the edge, moving like someone who refused to remember pain. Goss still wrapped her ribs, but her eyes were sharp. "I heard. The announcement," she said, voice rough but steady. "We won't outrun them." Prin took a measured breath. "Your recovery is incomplete. Another 20 hours of regenerative rest is recommended." "We don't have 20 hours," she replied. "What we do have is the Silence pride. If we bait them into boarding, their numbers stop mattering." Tight corridors, sealed bulkheads, one hallway can equalize a fleet. Prin blinked. "Intend to fight here?" "This is a hospital ship, not fight. Doctor, misdirect." She pointed to his portable scope on the nearby table. "But I'll need an edge, something that boosts me without knocking me out." Prin hesitated. Since arriving at the wreck, he had gathered nanoscopic samples of her clotting factors, studied how adrenaline amplified human muscle fibers, and watched a woman on the brink of shock carry bodies bigger than herself. An idea half theory. Half madness tugged at him. He retrieved a small vial from a locked cooler. Its contents shimmered faint gold. "This compound mimics your natural stress chemicals," he said quietly. "It will heighten reflexes, dull pain, and accelerate oxygen use. But after 20 minutes, your cardiovascular system will collapse into extreme fatigue. If you push beyond that, then wheel me back into the pod," she finished. 20 minutes is more than most people get. She offered her arm. Prin injected the serum, feeling like a conspirator. Alarms flickered inside his conscience, yet hope flickered brighter. On the bridge, Captain Durrell watched Cylon ships bloom on. The view screened 3 predatory silhouettes eclipsing starlight. She toggled internal defenses, gravitic turrets, low-gilled ion cannons, hull-mounted tractor webs. None of these belonged on a hospital frigate. But frontier law was simple. Healers had the right to protect their wards. Still, their firepower was a candle against a hurricane. Naya strode in, wrapped in a fresh uniform that still smelled of disinfectant. Her pupils were wide. Her steps carried new electricity. "Vent-controlled plasma from port thrusters," she said. "Make it look like a coolant leak and drop power to port shields by 30%. They'll see weakness and anchor there for boarding." The captain tilted her silvered head, and once they are inside, we reroute atmospheric processors in sections 4 through 8. Cylon lung Cs and low nitrogen mixes. They'll be forced into single file along maintenance ring Alpha directly. Past surgical storage. Naya tapped the layout hovering above the console. Dr. Tallow has rigged plasma scalpels into short-range defense grids. Prin, standing behind her, felt the weight of what he'd done. Instruments meant to heal would now become blades of light. Dharrell gave a single nod. Execute. Cylon Commander Jork Vale paced the bridge of his flagship Shadow Verdict. Crimson runes scrolled across his visor telemetry of the ailing human vessel ahead. Faint vapors leaked from its port side like blood from a wound. Perfect. "Target engines first," he ordered. "Disable. Do not destroy." Green lances of energy streaked across space, slamming into Meridian Solace. The hospital ship shuddered. Sparks rained in engineering. But to the silent scanners, shields on the port quarter now flickered at 12%. "Bring us alongside," Jorah hissed. "Prepare boarding claws." He fancied himself an artisan. Carve open a helpless shell, pluck out secrets, then silence the witnesses. The Federation would protest. They always did. Words were air. Air was free. Impact rocked Deck 7 as Cylon claws pierced hull plating. Air howled into vacuum before emergency shutters slammed shut. Internal sensors flashed intruder icons like angry wasps. Naya exhaled. The serum coursed hot through her veins, each heartbeat a drum. She was already waiting in Ring Alpha, lights dimmed to amber. Behind her flickered Prin's repurposed scalpels, glowing violet and hungry. Footsteps echoed the heavy tread of Cylon shock armor. She opened her comlink, whispering, "Gravity shift now." Engineering toggled a pulse. Artificial gravity. Dipped for half a second. just enough to stagger the first wave pouring through the hatch. In that moment, Naya surged forward, a blur of motion. Elbow to visor, knee to joint, palm to throat. The corridor filled with clanging armor and muffled grunts. Her ribs screamed, but the serum muffled pain into a distant bell. 20 minutes, she reminded herself. Make each breath count. The Cylon regrouped, rifles rising. Before they could fire, the scalpels activated, brilliant sheets of plasma arcing across the passage. Armor sizzled, lenses cracked. One invader cried out as circuits fried inside his suit. Nay vaulted over a collapsed warrior, snatched his sidearm and sent 3 concise shots downrange. Lights burst blue against chest plates. The line broke. She knew when to stop. This wasn't about slaughter, it was about time. Pulling back, she let her boots ring on the deck loud enough for microphones. Lure them. Make them think one wounded human was the primary threat. She ducked into an auxiliary storeroom just as Commander Jorik entered the corridor, rage pulsing in every stride. The trap was half-sprung, PRY, and monitored vital feeds from medbay. Heart raced near the upper boundary of human tolerance. Lactic markers spiked. 17 minutes since injection, he keyed a private channel. Commander levels are redlining. Static crackled, then her voice replied, tight but resolved, almost done. Inside the storeroom, darkness cloaked wire racks and crates. Naya stepped into a beam of emergency light, chest heaving. Jorik's silhouette filled the doorway, rifle raised. Alone at last, he growled. Your courage borders on madness. Maybe, she answered, tossing the stolen sidearm aside. Metal clanged an invitation. But courage is contagious. Want to catch it, he fired? She rolled behind crates. Bolts carved molten grooves inches away. Splinters of composite bit her skin. But adrenaline washed the sting to nothing. She grabbed a severed coolant hose and flung it through the air. Mist erupted, shimmering in the half-light. Jorik's visor autopolarized, momentarily obscuring. Vision Naya leapt forward, slamming a broken rail into the rifle's muzzle. The weapon skittered away, spinning. They crashed together, steel plate against desperate will. Jorik outweighed her armor-amplifying strength, yet she fought like a cornered wolf. Her fingers found an exposed wire seam at the back of his neck joint. She yanked. Servos sparked, the armor's shoulder lock seizing. Time slowed. 19 minutes. Jork roared and backhanded her, sending her sprawling. Pain finally pierced the chemical haze, turning the ceiling into blurred constellations. He lunged, intent on crushing WINDP. Before his gauntlet closed, she whispered, Computer. Execute protocol lantern. Hidden emitters burst to life, bathing the room in blinding strobes. Jorik reeled, visor overwhelmed. Naya, half-blind herself, rolled to the control panel along the wall. Open vent B6. She gasped. A hatch yawned in the floor and supercooled. Air roared upward. Oxygen plummeted. Temperature nosedived. Exposed Cylon skin frosted in seconds. Their species' warm-blooded metabolisms despised sudden cold. Jork staggered, choking Naya. Slims felt like lead. 20 minutes. Heartbeat thundered in her ears. Stumbling, she reached into her jacket and withdrew a tiny data node, blinking green. It's the last copy of Cylon War Crimes until transmission finished. Game over, she rasped. He glared, still, fighting to breathe. Not yet. But he knew. Outside, on the bridge, Cylon Tech crews would already see the transmission spike. The evidence was flying beyond reach. He stumbled backward, slapping at his cum. All units retreat. Pull claws. Full withdrawal. Naya smiled through blood. Victory tasted like iron. Her legs buckled. Jorik vanished into the haze, leaving only echoing footsteps. PRYN and a pair of orderlies found her collapsed by the open vent. Frost rimed her hair. Lips were blue. Monitors flashed critical. The doctor sealed the hatch and injected counteragent's voice soft and urgent. Stay with me, Naya. I have you. For one instant, her eyes flickered open. She managed a whisper. Did we? The 20-minute mark. 21, Prin replied. She grinned, then let darkness take her, trusting that this time it would be the peaceful kind. Soft light bathed the recovery wing of Meridian Solace. Alarms were quiet now, replaced by a gentle pulse that counted heartbeats and hope in equal measure. 3 days had slipped past since the Cylon fleet turned away, and in that borrowed peace, Dr. Printelo fought a quieter war-mending bodies, untangling shock, and learning just how far a human could stretch the line between life and death. Commander Naya Rovers lay in a sleep so deep it frightened him. Her skin carried faint frost burns from the vent trap. Her ribs were latticed with regrowth mesh. Each hour Prin checked clotting markers, electrolyte flux, neural pulses. Each hour the numbers crept closer to balanced. Still, he found himself at her bedside, antennae twitching, worrying like a novice. On the dawn of the 4th rotation, she opened her eyes. "So we're not ghosts," she whispered, voice raw as unpolished stone. Prin exhaled in relief. "Welcome back, Commander." She glanced at the monitors, reading her own story in rising graphs. "How many made it?" "All 15 survivors," he answered. "Plus 1 reckless strategist who refused to die." Her smile reached only one corner of her mouth. "Reckless is cheaper than funerals." He gave a soft click of amusement, then placed a datapad in her hand. "The transmission log. Your evidence packet reached 5 Federation hubs and was mirrored 27 times in the outer relay net. The Council began a formal tribunal yesterday." Naya scrolled through acknowledgments, her gaze brightening despite exhaustion. "They can't bury it now, nor can the Cylon erase it," Prin said. "Their commander sent 2 more ships toward home space instead of back to us. A tactical retreat. Fear dressed up as strategy," she muttered. Then she noticed another file open on the pad's schematics overlaid with cell diagrams. "What's this?" Prin's antennae stood taller. "A project proposal. The Council asked me to lead a cross-species study on adaptive healing. Your blood taught us more in 2 days than a dozen symposiums managed in a decade." Raised a brow. "You're turning me into homework, akin to a blueprint," he corrected gently. "Platelet mimic gels. Autocog wraps for species that never evolved clotting. Imagine a battlefield where bleeding out becomes myth." She sank back against the pillow, the idea settling over her like sunrise mist. "If the price for that is a few vials of me, I can live with it." "Speaking of living," Prin added, "Captain Durrell requested your presence on Observation Deck Alpha once you can walk." "No rush," she said, "but she has something for you." Naja eyed the crutches leaning nearby. "Give me an hour." Observation Deck Alpha looked nothing like a war room. Wide windows framed the nebula of Varus Cluster, clouds of amethyst and ink swirling beyond the glass. Survivors from Crimson Siren gathered in small knots Nasari, tending grills glowing in soft conversation. Velta twins trading jokes, even 2 silent defectors who now wore neutral gray jumpsuits instead of armor. When Naya arrived, leaning only slightly on a cane, the room fell to hush. Captain Durrell stood beside a small plinth, draped in Federation white. "Commander," the captain said, her molten silver features unreadable but her voice warm. "This vessel owes its life to you. The Council agrees." She lifted the cloth. Beneath lay a single metal matte bronze shaped like twin spirals joining in the middle. "The Convergent Star," Durrell continued. "Awarded for acts that unite science and courage." Naya hesitated. Recognition had never been her aim, yet refusal felt wrong. She accepted the medal, its weight modest but strange. Cheers erupted gentle, respectful but carrying a thunder made of many species gratitude. As the applause ebbed, the Nasari child, now wearing a fresh tunic, approached. Their voice was barely more than a ripple. "You carried me when I could not breathe. Thank you." Naya knelt with a wince and tapped the medal. "I carried you, you carried this. Fair trade." In those simple words, the room found a new stillness, one stitched by shared ordeal. Weeks passed. Each ULL plates were patched, engines recalibrated, and the medbay emptied one bed at a time. Rumor said the tribunal broadcast had reached independent. Worlds far beyond core lines, rallies bloomed. Questions multiplied. The Cylon Concord bled allies faster than it had attacked them. Yet somewhere in the dark arm of the galaxy, Jorik Vale watched recordings of the corridor fight frame by frame. Studying the moment a frostburn human toppled trained soldiers, determination, or perhaps obsession, sharpened his gaze. Adapt or perish, he murmured to no one. But that future belonged to later chapters. On the eve of departure for Federation Central, Dr. Prin Talo stood before a packed auditorium. Aboard Meridian Solace, converted into a makeshift symposium. Doctors, engineers, diplomats, every seat brimmed with anticipation. Holograms flickered behind him, a comparison of 6 circulatory systems. He cleared his throat, mandibles adjusting. The microphone. When I first analyzed human blood, he began, voice carrying both wonder and humility, I thought I'd discovered an anomaly. Instead, I found a reminder. Evolution writes many languages, and survival is fluent in them all. Today I present new hemostatic scaffolds derived from Commander Rover's platelet behavior. Initial trials suggest 87% reduction in critical blood loss across 4 species. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Prin gestured to a side door. Of course, theory meets reality best when reality walks on stage. The door slid open. Naya stepped through, not in uniform, but in simple exploration garb. Kane nowhere in sight. Murmurs swelled. Some eyes widened at the living proof of resilience. She took her place beside Prin. He offered the floor. She spoke plainly. The galaxy is vast, she said, and so are the ways we can break. But every time we share what makes us different, we discover how to stand together. Bleeding taught my planet not to waste a drop of life. Maybe it can teach us all the same lesson. Silence followed, deep, reflective, unscripted. Then applause surged, unbound and echoing against the curved walls. Prin turned once more to the audience. Our mission is simple. Learn, adapt, and heal. Because somewhere out there, another distress beacon will spark in the dark, and I want every crew to know help can be faster than fear. Later, on a quiet deck overlooking the nebula, Naya and Prin shared a pot of bitterroot tea. Think, the council will let us stay a team, she asked. They would be foolish not to, he replied, mandibles tinged with a smile. Beyond the glass, the nebula's swirls glimmered like embers, stirred by a cosmic breeze. Each spark seemed small, almost fragile, yet together they lit the whole horizon. Naya sipped her tea, feeling the warmth spread. Funny, she said. How battlefields sometimes plant gardens? Prin nodded. Light needs darkness to be noticed, and silence needs sparks to end. They sat without words after that, watching stars write tomorrow's map one flicker at a time. Hush that follows battle. Even a single spark can promise a brighter sky. May we never forget to kindle it.